Hello, and welcome to another episode in the Georgia Workers' Compensation video series. My name is Jason Perkins. I'm an attorney who specializes in handling Georgia workers' compensation cases. I created this series of videos to provide people who've been hurt at work in Georgia with helpful information about Georgia's workers' compensation laws and the benefits they should receive under those laws. Now, let's jump straight into today's topic. Today, I'd like to talk to you about are construction injuries covered by Georgia workers' compensation law? Fortunately, most work-related construction injuries are covered by Georgia workers' compensation law. This is quite important because working on a construction site can be quite dangerous. You're exposed to many different types of risk. Some common types of risks include working at heights. You're at risk of falling and suffering an injury. Also, many construction workers work with heavy equipment or work on uneven surfaces that can be dangerous. You may have to lift heavy objects, or you may work with vibrating tools or around electricity. All of these risks can cause injury, and there are others as well. So it is important to know that most injuries that occur on construction sites to construction workers are covered under Georgia workers' compensation law. But there are some injuries that are not going to be covered. So what type of construction injuries are not covered by Georgia workers' compensation? Well, one common thing that can happen on a construction site is that somebody can be an independent contractor and suffer a work-related injury. Generally, under Georgia workers' compensation law, workers' compensation only covers employees. It does not cover independent contractors. So if you're a subcontractor working on a construction site and you suffer a work-related injury, it's possible that you might not be covered by Georgia workers' compensation. Now, one important thing to understand is just because a business might classify you as a subcontractor does not mean that you actually are an independent contractor. Many times people are classified as independent contractors and they're sent 1099s, but actually they're considered an employee under Georgia workers' compensation law. There's a different multi-factor test that determines ultimately whether somebody is an independent contractor or employee. I'm not going to go into it here, but it is important if you're considered an independent contractor, and that's the reason your workers' compensation claim is denied, that you should look into that further. But one other important thing to realize about this independent contractor versus employee distinction is the independent contractor only applies if you're the actual subcontractor. So you're the owner of the business or the sole proprietor who's working out there. If you are an employee who's working for a subcontractor, then you should still be considered an employee. So you shouldn't be barred from receiving workers' compensation benefits in that situation. Now, one other common problem for construction workers who are trying to receive Georgia workers' compensation benefits has not so much to do with not being covered, but being able to collect the workers' compensation benefits that they should receive. Many employers who work on construction sites may fail to purchase workers' compensation coverage, even if they should. This causes a problem because then there's no workers' compensation insurance when someone gets hurt. And so if someone has a workers' compensation claim, but they find it very difficult to receive the benefits that they should receive, such as wage loss benefits or medical treatment and testing for their injury, because maybe their employer is not able to pay those benefits. They may run into a situation where their employer declares bankruptcy or goes insolvent, and so they're kind of left holding the bag. Now, fortunately, there is a special rule set up under Georgia workers' compensation law to try to deal with these situations, and that rule is referred to as statutory employment. This rule often helps to provide applicable workers' compensation coverage to injured workers when they're injured, but their employer has failed to purchase workers' compensation insurance coverage. The basic idea of this rule is that the workers' compensation insurance of a principal or intermediate contractor will apply when a subcontractor doesn't purchase workers' compensation coverage and one of the subcontractor's employee is injured. This rule often protects employees of subcontractors who suffer work-related injuries on construction sites. but there are special requirements that must be met for this rule to apply. One of the primary requirements is that the injury must have occurred on, in, or about the premises where the principal or intermediate contractor, who's going to be deemed to be the statutory employer, undertook to execute work or were otherwise under their control or management. Now, in a construction injury situation, this would often include the construction site itself because the subcontractor has been hired by the intermediate contractor or general contractor to come and do work on that particular site. But sometimes it can also include areas outside of the specific construction site. So if you suffer an injury that doesn't occur on the construction site, there may still be an argument that you were on the premises that were under the under the principal contractor or intermediate contractor's control or management. Now, we've talked about getting your injury covered under Georgia workers' compensation when it occurs on a construction site. But one final important thing to remember is that's really just the first part of the battle, getting your claim accepted as a workers' compensation claim. The bigger part of the battle is often fighting to make sure you receive the wage loss, medical, and permanent partial disability benefits that you should receive, because insurance companies often fight about the amount of the benefits that they should pay to you. I hope you found the information in this video helpful. If you have, please consider two things before you go. First, I'd really appreciate if you give this video a like or a thumbs up, and consider subscribing to this channel if you'd like to be notified of future videos in the Georgia Workers' Compensation video series. Second, if you've got workers' compensation questions, please reach out to get answers. I offer free consultations in Georgia workers' compensation cases. If you'd like to set one of those up, there's two easy ways you can do so. The first is by calling the phone number at the bottom of the screen, and the other is by reaching out to us to our website, which is www.perkinslawtalk.com. Just click on and submit the free consultation request form there, and a member of our team will reach out to you and get a consultation scheduled. I'd like to thank you again for watching this video today. I'd like to wish you the best of luck as you recover from your injuries.